Hello and welcome to Robotics for All online Python 6 to 8 class. We are really looking forward to having you as a student for the next 8 weeks, and we hope that you have fun and learn the basics of Python. To start off, let's get our coding interface set up first. We'll be using REPL.it, an online coding environment, to write all our code. Type in REPL.it, press enter, and then click the sign up button. We have a couple of options for signing up. If you have a Google account, you can click this button right here and sign up using your Google account. If you want to create an email from scratch, if you want to create an account from scratch, you can enter your username, email, and password. When you create a password, include uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, symbols, and symbols so that your password is strong. Make sure to not click this button because you're a student and not a teacher. Go ahead and pause the video right here, and I'll be back once I've signed in. Once you've signed in, you should enter at this screen. To start off, we're going to go to My REPLs in the left right here, and then once you're in My REPLs, click the New REPL button. Whenever you click the New REPL button, this will create a new file for you. As you can see, we can pick the language, and there are tons of languages, but for right now, since we're using Python, we're going to go ahead and type in Python and select Python. Make sure not to select these other ones because those are the wrong ones. We want to select Python right here. And then we can name it whatever we want. In this case, we'll name it our first REPL. Go ahead and click create, and your REPL should be created. Once you click that button, you should arrive here. As you can see, now we've created a REPL where we can type in all our code. But before we do that, let's go back to our REPL. So go to your homepage, select My REPLs, and then instead of creating a new REPL, what we're going to do is set up our folder system. To start off, create a new folder. Click the New Folder button, and then type in Python Curriculum as the name of your folder. This folder will contain all the Python files and also folders that we will create during the 8 weeks of class. Once you've created your folder, go ahead and click into it. Right now, we're going to make a folder for each week. Remember that there are 8 weeks of class, so that means that you should have 8 folders. Go ahead and pause the video and create all of your folders, and I'll be back with my 8 folders. As you can see, now I have all 8 folders for each week of the class. Now, go into the respective folder for your week. For example, if you're on week 1, then go into the week 1 folder. Create a new REPL. Title it the week that you're on, so week 1 through 8. Create a REPL, and now we'll start to explore our REPL and code. Make sure that you have your REPL open so that you can follow along with the video. Before we get started programming, let's take a look at our REPL. On the left here, we have our file menu with our main.py file, which stands for Python. At the top, we have our Add File button. We can add a folder, and we can upload a file or upload a folder. In the middle right here, this is where we're going to type in all of our Python code. At the top, we have our Run button. This will allow us to run the code that we write and see what happens. Finally, on the right here, we have a console. The console is where the code is going to output and we can see the results of it. Finally, at the top right here, we have the Share button. At the bottom, you can see that we have something called an invite friend with a join link. This is a link that if you copy and paste and send to other people, they'll be able to look at your code and edit it and use it. This is very useful because that means you can submit this code for your homework, and that'll allow the teacher to directly view all your work and help you out with it. In today's video, we're going to cover the following concepts: the print function, syntax, comments, string operation with print function, escape sequences, and math operations. One of the most basic things that you can do with any programming language is print stuff to our console. In order to do that in Python, we have to use the print function. It looks like this: print, and then a set of open and close parentheses. In Python, you can print numbers such as 10, 5.0, and 45. Additionally, you can print text. In order to print text, we have to start off by typing in a set of quotes, a double quote or a single quote. Make sure that you have two. The reason we have to use quotes is because this tells Python where our text is going to start and where our text is going to end. So once you have your quotes, you can write any message you want. Hello world, for example. Additionally, you can type in symbols and numbers because those also count as text. In fact, they count as characters. It is important to note that in Python, text also counts as characters in our string. So as you can see, if I put tons of space here, it'll print it out. In fact, I'll put it right here, and there we go. There's a big space between hello and world. Note that you can use double and single quotes. So remember that I can use double quotes, such as above, or single quotes. And I can type in a message that I want. And as you can see, it worked in both cases. In Python, everything you type out must be written in a certain way, otherwise it won't work. For example, if I forget a parentheses on one of my print functions and run it, you can see that now I get an error. The text in red means that there's an error. This is known as syntax. Syntax is a set of rules that determine how certain things in Python must be written for it to interpret it correctly. The error that you get when writing something incorrectly is called a syntax error. For example, in the English language, we have tons of rules about how we're supposed to write our words and sentences, for example, grammar, using commas, and more. Some other common syntax errors are misspelling words. For example, if I misspelled a print and wrote PRT, as you can see now it's spelled wrong and it's going to give me an error. Additionally, if you forget a quote, then there's also going to be an error because Python does not know where your text is going to start and your text is going to end. When working in a team or working on a project in Python, it is very, very important to know what a certain piece of code does. In programming, we can use comments to write notes to ourselves or our team members about what a certain piece of code does. In Python, in order to write a comment, we have to use the hashtag symbol. As you can see, whenever I write the hashtag symbol, my text turns gray. This indicates that I'm now writing a comment. For example, if we wanted to write a message about what this line of code does, then what we can say is that this prints hello world -2342 and tons of spaces. In Python, we can combine two or more text and numbers in the same print function. In order to combine two or more pieces of text, we can use the plus symbol between two text pieces. For example, if I have the print statement apple and peach, I can use a plus symbol between them, and when I print it out, you can see that now it combined apple and peach into one piece of text and printed out apple peach. It's important to note that this method will not allow you to combine text and numbers. In another week, we will learn how to circumvent this problem. For now, we can use a second method that allows us to combine multiple items in one print function. This is by using a comma-separated list. If we have apple and comma peach, you can see that if I print it out, and first, if I print it out, I will get apple space peach. Note that in this case, when I use a comma, it gave me apple space peach. But none of these texts have any spaces in them. That's because the comma whenever you use a comma, it will automatically add a space between our items. In this case, we can actually use numbers in the same print function. So as you can see, if I write apple peach 10, the print function will print out apple space peach space 10. The last really cool feature of Python that we're going to talk about today is multiplying strings. If we wanted to print out strings a multiple number of times without having to type in the string that many number of times. So for example, if I have hello world and I wanted it to print out 3 times, what I could do is use asterisk symbol and a number. The asterisk symbol is also the multiplication symbol in Python. All it's saying is to multiply the string 3 times, or in other words, print it out 3 times. And as you can see, it printed it out right next to each other 3 times. Moving on, within text, we can use certain symbols that will format our string when we print it out. This is called an escape sequence. One example of an escape sequence is the new line character. This will put everything after the new line escape sequence on a new line. So for example, if I have apple and peach, if I wanted to put them on separate lines within one print function, I need to do backslash and then n. Once again, this is the new line escape sequence. So if I run it, now you can see that it'll print out apple space peach, or apple, then on a new line, space peach. Remember that if you just want to get rid of the space, you just have to edit your original piece of text. And now you have apple, and on another line, peach. Another example of an escape sequence is the tab escape sequence. This will print a tab after the tab escape sequence is recognized. So for example, if I have apple, backslash t, and then peach, it'll print out apple, add a tab, and then peach. The last escape sequence we're going to talk about is the double quote or single quote escape sequence. Remember that in Python, we need to use a pair of double quotes or single quotes to explain where our text starts or ends, where our string starts and ends. What if the text inside our string contained a double quote or a single quote? For example, what if I use a single quote and then a contraction? I can't run, for example. As you can see, if I run the code, I get an error. The reason you get an error is because Python can't tell which one's the open quote and the end quote. So it doesn't recognize what is actually the text. As you can see, this stuff is highlighted, but this stuff is not. So in order to circumvent this problem, we have the single quote escape sequence. In other words, all we have to do is use backslash and then t, backslash and then single quote. And as you can see, there's no more red squigglies, and if I run it, now I can print out the contraction exactly as I want it to. Now remember that this works for double quotes. If I had, for example, if I'm citing like an author or want to put some dialogue, for example, Bob said, hi. Once again, you can see here that there's an error, and if I run it, I'll get an error. But if I put backslash and then double quote around here and here, now it will properly print out Bob said hi exactly as I wanted to. The last feature of Python that we're going to discuss is math operations. Python can do very basic math operations. In order to do addition, we have to use the plus symbol on our keyboard. If I wanted to do 1 plus 1, then I'll just do 2. If I wanted to do subtraction, for example 10 minus 2, all I'd have to do is use the dash symbol on our keyboard, and I get 8. If I wanted to do multiplication, all I have to do is use the asterisk symbol on our keyboard. 10 times 2 is 20. And if I wanted to do division, then I'd have to use the /, and then 10 divided by 2 is 5. Lastly, for exponents, all I'd have to do is use 2 asterisks. So if I wanted to find 10 to the power of 2, or any other problem like that, for example 10 to the power of 3, I can use exponents, and in this case 10 to the power of 3 is 1000. Some other operations that you may not have heard of that Python can do are integer division and modulus. In Python, integer division divides the number and then chops off the decimal. Note that integer division does not round the answer. For example, let's take a look at our division problem above, 10 divided by 2. When I printed it out, I got 5.0. Now let's see what happens when I use the integer division operator. This is 2 /. As you can see, I got 5 instead of 5.0, and that's because it chopped off the decimal. Once again, right here, 5 versus 5.0. Now this applies to any other division problem. For example, if I do 13 divided by 7 and 13//7, or integer divide 13 and 7, here I get 1.857 and a long decimal versus just 1. Next is modulus. Modulus gives you the remainder of a division problem. For example, let's see what 12 divided by 7 is. As you can see when I print it out, let me comment these out. When I print out 12 divided by 7, I get 1.71428, and so on. Now remember that for modulus, we're looking at the remainder of the division problem. For 12 divided by 7, 7 goes into 12 evenly only once, and then we get a remainder of we get 5 left over. So if I wanted to print 12% 7, I would get 5. The trick with modulus is to ask yourself, how many times does the second number go into the first number evenly, and then how much do I have left over? So once again, 7 goes into 12 evenly one time, so 12 minus 7 is 5, and I have 5 left over. Try it with other division problems, and you can see that I'll get the remainder of those division problems. That concludes the week 1 video. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you in the next class.